So, originally I was just going to do the Siege Earthrise Astrotrain, but when I was started to do this, I realized I had the Titan's Returner on the way, so I figured I'd throw him in as well. But since 2 didn't really seem like a good number for a Triplechanger review, I ordered the Classics Astrotrain as well. So, yeah, strap yourselves in. It's gonna be a long one. There isn't really going to be a toy retrospective this time around because I'm doing 3 of the 4 molds this character has had. The only one I'm not doing is the original G1 mold from 85, and I'm sure I'll mention him a bunch throughout the review, so there's no point in me just going over it now. The other thing I want to mention is that this review is going to be structured a bit differently than most other reviewers might structure it for a multi-figure review, because I think usually people do them by figure. I'm going to do it by mode, similar to how I did in my Battle Trap review, if you've seen that one. This will be interesting, but I want to at least try this. If it doesn't work, then oh well. Anyways, let's just jump in. Starting with the 06 Astrotrain, who's a pretty interesting take on the old space bus, considering the only mold before him was the 85 one, and every figure before him was just a repaint of that one. He definitely took inspiration from the Japanese release of the G1 toy, with mainly stark white paint job and accented by a lot of black. He does have purple and red from the American release though, which is nice, and it even helps liven up the figure a bit. They even added in a couple of metallics with the gold on the chest and the silver face. Speaking of the face, let's look at that for a moment. So its design itself takes cues from the cartoon like you would expect, with the more rounded helmet and the Roman soldier-esque helmet mohawk. But the colors are very G1 toy, with the silver face and the yellow eyes and the red mohawk headlamp. The head is also sporting some pretty decent articulation, with a ball joint at the base of the skull, so we can look around a decent amount, and up and down. So his chest is the pretty basic block of plastic with the robot detail sculpted in. The oddest part for me is the waist, which sticks out because of some fake train wheels. Interestingly enough, though, they did go with the shuttle wing bow tie, which like I said, I find it interesting because no American release of Astrotrain before this had that bow tie. It was really only on the Japanese original release. I'm not really complaining, though. It does bring some nice color to the chest with the red and purple, and it also covers up some very odd chest holes. And while we're on the topic of design choices, he does keep the shuttle wing backpack and thruster pack, which I believe is the staple of any Astrotrain design. Moving on to the arms, which are probably the most unique and different sections of this figure's design. So, because instead of the usual just blocky arms the character usually has, this toy has the arms decorated with bits from the train mode. So he's got these rather large shoulder pads made from the sides of the train, which are on hinges, so you can kind of position them however you want. And the shoulder detail itself is actually pretty good inside, and the shoulders are on hinges and a ball joint, so the articulation there is fairly good for as basic as it is. Moving on down, the elbows are on a ball joint, and the lower arms have pretty much just as much detail as the shoulders. And they have these front of the train arm shields, which I very much enjoy. Some people might consider it kibble, but I don't. Finishing up with the legs, and they're kinda weird. Like, all the articulation is clustered in this upper thigh area. And so, like, the hip movement is inside the waist, like kind of expect. But that's only the side-to-side movement. The back and forth movement is right here, right below it. And they can't even go back at all because of the backpack. The knees do go about a 90-degree angle, but really only when you move the upper leg forward. He does have a swivel at just below the knee though, which is appreciated. Now, the lower legs are pretty much just the Combiner Wars helicopter legs, done up in white and black, and done 10 years earlier. So on the topic of decades, it was about that long till Astrotrain got any type of new figure. And that was in the form of Titan's Return Astrotrain, who right off the bat is not your traditional Astrotrain. He was a retool of the Titan's Return Sentinel Prime mold. Some say Sentinel Prime was a pre-tool for him. It doesn't matter either way. He exists, and I'm fine with it. So like before, we're just going to start with the head and work our way down. Now, this isn't your usual Astrotrain head. Mainly because it's not just a head. It's a little person. Your Titan's Return whole gimmick was headmasters, so every figure came with a little dude who became their head. This also means you can mix and match heads if you have any spare Titan Masters lying around. Now, Astrotrain here came with Dark Moon, whose name is either a third movie reference or just a moon reference. And the figure itself is just a grey and purple repaint of Sentinel's headmaster with Astro's face slapped on his back. And there really isn't anything to say about these guys. Mine has some loose hips, but they're all pretty much the same. His face isn't actually that bad. He's got the classic cartoon shape with the rounded helmet and the yellow faux hawk. He also has some red painted eyes that are really sunken in for some reason. My only real problem with this is that the helmet section isn't painted purple to match the rest of the curled up Dark Moon. It just makes it that much more apparent how dull the gray they used is, especially with the face being the same unpainted plastic as the rest of it. Because I don't hate the gray. I get what they were going for. Clearly something between his two common colors of dark gray or white. But the color they landed on just feels like the one they used in the prototype. 1 or 2 shades darker probably would have done wonders. The chest is pretty barren, if I'm going to be honest. There are a lot of details in there, and the red, purple, and black on the ab section do help to break it up a bit, but it is just a lot of gray. He does have these purple pylons beside his head to help kind of fill it out a bit more, because without them, the head would look ungodly small. And design-wise, these seem to be some sort of homage to the G1 Toys train wheels, which were in a similar position just farther back. Now, these pylons are spring-loaded, and are activated by this gray section in between the abs. Now, because of where they spring up, it does limit head articulation a bit. But to compensate, they did put the whole assembly on kind of a mechanism, so you can get some more articulation with the pylons. It's not a lot, but it's something. Well, he does have the traditional wing pack. He doesn't have the thruster pack. It seems to have been replaced by some smaller wings. So the arms are your fairly standard chunks of plastic with robotic detail. Shoulders not nearly as big as the classics version, but they get the job done with an outward hinge and a rotation joint. The upper arms are looking a bit thin compared to the rest of it, but there's a bicep swivel, so that has to count for something. The lower arm here is the main event, clearly. It's pretty much double the size of the rest of the arm. Boatloads of mechanical detail built in, not to mention the dual mounted guns molded in on each arm. Articulation is kind of lacking though. I mean, the elbow just kind of goes just over 90 degrees. And the hands are pretty much static. I mean, they have inward movement, but why would you want that? And once more, the legs are the most flawed section of this figure. The crash piece on mine doesn't peg together very well. I think this might be a running flaw with most Astrotrains or figures from this mold, just because of the transformation. But holds together well enough. The back and forth ratchets for my legs are kind of floppy, like there's too much space in between the ratchets. It just kind of makes putting the figure down like you're putting him down on ice. Otherwise, the actual articulation isn't too bad. Pretty standard, and the thigh swivels are nice and tight. Knees can go back 90 degrees. Nothing real special there. You can kind of tell where all the paint on this figure went, and it's the lower legs. There's so much on here that it kind of feels out of place almost. Back of the legs, there's nothing special other than the hollowness from the bottom half. And now the feet. The feet look pretty nice from the front with the black tip toes and the nice curves. But he has a lack of heel spurs, and the joint that they're on really doesn't improve the whole stability issue. And now, we get to the final figure, and the reason this review is taking place. War for Cybertron Siege, Leader Class Astrotrain. Well now, technically this is the Earthrise version, but other than the box he was put in, both Siege and Astrotrain releases are exactly the same. So I'm just going to refer to him as the Siege one, because Siege came first. And this is an Astrotrain. All of the heft and chunk you would expect from the character, colored in a cartoon-accurate color scheme of dark gray and deep purple, with the appropriate accents of yellow, red, and silver where they're needed. Now, like the other two, we're going to start with the head, and God, what a perfect head this is. It's cast in a deep purple plastic with the yellow stripe painted on top, which is a very construction yellow. The face is painted in a flat silver, which brings out all of the details, not to mention the glorious ruby red eyes to bring everything together. It's mounted on a ball joint, which gives him a full 360-degree swivel, and a little bit of side-to-side and up and down movement. Not a lot, but it is there, and it is appreciated. Now, the chest is your pretty solid chunk of dark gray plastic, including the show-accurate pectorals and the red abs, both of which are cut in half by the center support beam. He does have the shoulder pylons this time around, but they look less like wheels and more just like various mechanical details or weapons or something. The wing pack continues to be a staple of the Astrotrain designs, and I think they pretty much nailed it. The wings themselves are perfectly large and are mainly gray this time around instead of purple, but oddly enough, all that gray is just painted on because the wings are molded in purple. The rest of the pack makes its welcome return, done up in a very nice gunmetal gray and silver. And the thrusters themselves are actually built into the back panel this time instead of sticking out like the original toy or the classics one. There isn't really much to say about the arms. They're just kind of boxes of dark gray plastic connected to each other with a boatload of mechanical detail on them. The shoulders have your pretty universal shoulder movement, although they can't go out a full 9 degrees because of how the arm is designed, but it gets the job done. It's enough. Below that, there's a full 360-degree bicep rotation, and some double hinge elbows, which are welcome first. The hands don't really have any articulation because of how they transform. It's really just the hinge that allows them to fold into the forearm. Now, onto the legs, which aren't perfect, but they're probably as good as you're going to get for a retail Astrotrain. He has 360-degree waist rotation, and he has flaps on the front of his waist to allow for the hips to move forward. Hips can also move outwards, but they can't really move back. Not only are they hindered by the wing pack, but there's also sections at the back here that limit the movement as well, for whatever reason. Moving on down, he does have a thigh swivel that is pretty tight, but it is there. And about 9-degree knees. The right knee, specifically on my copy, is rather loose. Isn't a lot of friction there. Not loose enough to not support his own weight, but just a lot looser than I would like. The lower legs are considerably chunky and large, although I do wish this knee joint was pushed back a little bit further so it didn't seem like everything was on the back of the leg. I understand why it's not, but it just would have been nice. And with that being said, I've seen worse leg kibble out there, so it's not that big a deal. Plus, this diagonal panel here helps a lot more than you'd expect. Nothing real special going on with the feet, and they have some ankle tilt, and they go back all the way, so he's got some good stability. But other than that, they're just kind of feet. The feet and chins are the only part of this figure that have the siege battle damage, and I know a lot of people don't like this battle damage. I personally do. I have always loved it, and I probably always will. I think it brings a lot of like story and character to the toys, and honestly, I think in this case it brings some nice color to the legs, which would have just been plain gray otherwise. Now, each figure comes with its own weapons and accessories. MacLeod's figure just comes with this standard purple rifle, which is very reminiscent of the original toy, and he doesn't really have any other features or anything like that. He's just a robot that turns into a train and a shuttle, and that's just fine by me. Now, the Titan's Return toy comes with a couple guns. He's got this kind of standard rifle, which has a peg on either side, I guess for display options, and a second gun that has a couple of pegs inside that allow you to see any extra Titan Masters that you have, or for some forwards compatibility, you can put Prime Masters from Power of the Primes in there as like power-ups or something. The other thing you can do is that you can plug both guns together to make a larger gun. Now, the Siege figure, on the other hand, comes equipped with a whole armory of weapons, including a pair of standard rifles, a larger kind of rifle or hand cannon, a chain gun, and a missile pod. All of these weapons have names, but my instructions didn't say what they are, and TFWiki didn't say which one is which. But that's all fine by me, because the names are kind of stupid anyways. Like JF-30 Astro Blaster, or W-40 Turbo Core Derailer. But what isn't a stupid name is the Omni Force Orbital Cannon, which is what you can make from combining all these weapons together. God, it is so ridiculous, I love it. 3 barrels, undersling missile pod, and it's as tall as the Classics figure. Now, if for some reason you don't want this giant gun, you can disassemble it and put the weapons pretty much wherever you want on the actual Siege figure. Because, like the rest of the Siege toy line, he is covered in 5mm port. He's got one on the bottom of each foot, one on each ankle, fists, forearms, and shoulders, one on each wing, plus 3 on his back, because each thruster is a 5mm hole. He can hold all of his weapons, plus all the other Astrotrain weapons, and still have room for more. This is my favorite gimmick ever of all time. Oh, and let's not forget about the blast effects that you can apply to any weapon. The effects themselves only come with the Siege Battle Masters, but they add for some extra playability. Last but not least, he also comes with this like battle platform where you can store all the weapons. It doesn't really look like much, but you can take these 2 gray pieces off and attach them to the bottom of his feet. So you can have some extra stability, plus he gains like maybe a 1/4 inch of height. Speaking of height, let's get into some size comparisons. Each Astrotrain is distinctly different in size. The Classics one is 14 centimeters, which is about 5.5 inches. The Titan's Return is 18 centimeters, which is about 7 inches. And the Siege one is 16 centimeters, 6.2 inches without the feet attachments, and 16.8 centimeters, 6.6 inches with them. Here they all are with each other, and here they all are with Siege Optimus, Siege Megatron, Titan's Return Octone, Classics Cliffjumper, and my last review, Generations GDO Swerve. So the transformational shuttle mode for each one is relatively simple, with Sieges being the most complex, but not even being close to considered hard. And like each robot, all the shuttle modes are distinctly different. The 06 Deluxe here goes for a more NASA-esque realistic shuttle mode. The mainly white body with the black nose and underbelly. He does keep the purple, red, and gold from robot mode, but it does add some color to a rather bland vehicle. He does have some obvious train bits floating around, like the roof wheels here and these side sections, but I don't think they're that bad. They do bulk out the shuttle a decent amount. Now, as for features, all of the landing gear wheels roll, and these front ones can even retract in. Plus, you can hide his gun underneath. Titan's Return goes for a more mid-80s sci-fi shuttle look, and I'm all about it. Seriously, this thing looked like it was ripped right out of the 86 movie and painted in Decepticon colors. It's just filled to the brim with detail, super sleek. Now, unfortunately, the one detail you'd think should be visible, which is the cockpit, isn't. It's just kind of enveloped in all this blackness. Some other flaws include the arms just sticking out from under the wings, and the lack of any real boosters. But as for features, he has the secondary cockpit section here, which can open up and you can put Dark Moon in there so he can fit in vehicle mode. Then he does have 8 different ports around, which can allow you to store the guns. You've got these 2 here, you got these 2 down here on the diagonal, one underneath each wing, and you have one on each side here. Siege shuttle mode is, personally, I think the weakest of the bunch, but that doesn't mean it's bad in any way. It's very clearly just the G1 shuttle mode, just bigger. It's complete with the shuttle cockpit encased in a plastic cube, and even a tail fin hiding slot. Now, the cockpit cube really isn't pretty. It's just got too much bulk here, and these side panels really aren't helping this time around. Moving on towards the back, and things are still a mess with just exposed joints and hinges, gaps, and upside down parts. Everything here is solid, it's just how the transformation works. Feature-wise, you can still arm this thing up like you could in robot mode, and you can, if you want to, repurpose the old weapon display stand as a mobile launch pad. Size-wise, the classic shuttle is about 15 centimeters or 5.9 inches long. Titan's Return is 20.3 centimeters or 8 inches long, and Siege is 18.8 centimeters or 7.3 inches long. And here they are with Optimus, Megatron, Octone, Cliffjumper, and Swerve. Now, on to train mode. And finally on train modes. Transformation for these from shuttle mode is relatively simple. It usually just involves flipping the entire thing upside down and folding the wings down. Or in Titan's Return case, splitting the entire thing in half and folding the wings down. 06 Astrotrain keeps with his modern spin by using a bullet train instead of a steam engine for the train mode. And I really do like it as a modern take, even though I think it is the weakest of the 3 modes this toy has. All the windows here are painted black, which is fine for the side windows, but not so much for the front, considering everything behind it is also painted black. And on the topic of paint, the red and purple stripes on the side really help sell the bullet train alt mode. Too bad they only go halfway down the figure. Now, you can store the gun in this mode. It's usually the same peg as before, just this time it's on the roof. And he does roll decently well, considering he has 6 real wheels. Titan's Return, Astrotrain really takes the train mode to a whole new level, with turning into this incredibly long, double-ended death train. Each end is capped with a more diesel locomotive-looking front end that has a very large plow. And there's tons of train detail on here, like doors, windows, even wheels and ladders. He does have a couple of kind of rolling wheels underneath, but they are kind of few and far between and not the greatest. It just kind of feels like he's sliding on any kind of hard surface you put him on. Now, moving back up, you can see the mounted guns are on top of the train, where you'd expect them to be. And behind them you have the Titan Master cockpit section with some wing blades around it. Now, he does have a couple of 5mm ports on this section, where you can plug the guns in, but if you really want to use the Titan Master gun as intended, you kind of have to compromise the train's width. Now, after those 2 fairly different takes, Siege Astrotrain is a very welcome return to form, turning into the classic purple steam engine. This train looks extremely good and is impeccably detailed, with all the rivets and panel lines, and they even went to the effort to paint in all the pipes on the sides in a gunmetal, and it's very appreciated. Now, like the shuttle mode, the front end is a bit too small proportionately from the rest of the train. I don't mind it nearly as much for some reason, though. He rolls extremely well, sporting 6 sets of rolling wheels. He has a couple of ports on top where you can plug in some weapons, although they aren't in the best placement. Now, if you want, you can keep the train mode weapons free. You can take the weapons platform from earlier, fold it up, and then you get a tender for the train mode, which you can attach via the thruster ports on the back. I think this is ingenious, honestly. It's just super compact weapon storage, both in and out of train mode. For the final size comparisons, here in train mode, we got the classics, Comes in at 22.3 centimeters or 8.7 inches in length. The Titan's Return is a whopping 36.6 centimeters or 14.4 inches in length, and the Siege is 19 centimeters or 7.4 inches without the tender, and 29 centimeters or 11.4 with it. And here they are with Prime, Megatron, Octone, Cliffjumper, and Swerve. God damn, that took a while. But I hope you all enjoyed nonetheless. Let's just not waste any more time and get straight to ranking all of them. I find it funny that I'm essentially doubling my ranking list with this review, considering it's the fourth one. But anyways, I don't think any of them are worse than Studio Series Bro, so he gets pushed all the way down to 6th. Now in 5th, surprising pretty much only me, is Titan's Return Astrotrain. I always liked the look of this figure when he came out, especially in pictures, and I love both of the alt modes because they're just so ridiculous. But the robot mode just is a letdown for me. It doesn't feel like Astrotrain. He doesn't have the heft or the weight that you'd expect with a figure of that name. Now, for the next two spots, for 3rd and 4th, I end up pushing Swerve all the way down to 4th and putting the Classics figure right above him at 3rd. This figure was actually a surprise hit for me. I didn't really know what I was expecting when I got it, and I only got it to make this review 3 figures. But the more I play with him, the more I enjoy him. The design's interesting, and the transformations are fun and simple. And I do recommend this figure for any fan of the character. For the top 2 spots, I moved Battle Trap down to 2nd and put the Siege figure 1st. The reason I'm doing this is because I think Astrotrain as a whole is a better figure. He's more solid, and the gimmicks aren't as intrusive to anything. Plus, you don't have to pay for 2 separate figures to get the whole package. And that's all, folks. I really hope you enjoyed this. This was a bigger project than I was kind of expecting it to be at first. And if you're wondering where the wheel is, don't worry. It'll be at the very end, right after this. So, yeah, as always, Twitter and Discord and everything are down below. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more, and check out the playlist as well to watch all of the other reviews. With that, enjoy the wheel, and I'll see you on the next one. Later.